buhay matapos makuryente sa vault wire.
Ang kwento sa likod ng trahedyang ito ating aalamin mula sa mga detalye ng balitang ibabahagi maya-maya. Magandang gabi. Ako po si Ricky Mathay.
Ako si Nina Richie Alago Flores. Ito ang mata ng Agila International. Para naman sa mga headlines ngayong araw ng Martes.
Philippine Navy nilinaw na hindi sa China ang namataang warship sa Camarines Norte.
Pakinggan natin ang pahayag ng Pilipinas sa Munich Security Conference para ipaglaban ang karapatan nito sa West Philippine Sea.
European leaders nagsagawa ng emergency meeting sa Paris para talakayin ang peace deal para sa Ukraine.
Hindi bababa sa 15 katao na saktan sa Toronto plane crash.
At Elon Musk inilabas na ang Grok 3 AI. Nilinaw po ng Philippine Navy na hindi pagmamay-ari ng China ang namataang foreign warships malapit sa baybayin ng San Panganiban, Camarines Norte.
Paliwanag ng Philippine Navy, ang mga nasabing barkong pandigma ay pagmamay-ari ng France, Estados Unidos at Japan. Anila, nagsagawa ng naval exercises ang United States Navy, Marine National at Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force sa karagatan ng Pilipinas bilang bahagi ng Exercise Pacific Stellar 2025. Sinabi naman ng US Pacific Fleet na ang naturang naval drills ay para isulong ang malaya, bukas na Indo-Pacific space. Sa kabila nito ay nakaalerto ang Philippine Navy sa anumang mga kaganapan sa loob ng maritime seas ng Pilipinas para tiyakin ang kaligtasan at seguridad ng mga Pilipino.
Sa isang roundtable discussion sa 61st Munich Security Conference ay matapang na ipinagtanggol ng Pilipinas ang karapatan nito sa West Philippine Sea o WPS. Sinabi ni Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo na naninindigan ang Pilipinas sa pagtatanggol ng rules-based international order at rule of law, partikular na anya ang United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea o UNCLOS. Pinaalalahanan ni Manalo ang mga dumalong world leaders sa conference na ang pagsunod sa international law ay ang pinakamahusay na paraan upang mabawasan ang mga tensyon. Sa tuwing nagsasagawaan niya ang Pilipinas ng anumang uri ng aktibidad sa loob ng Exclusive Economic Zone o EEZ nito na alinsunod naman sa definisyon ng UNCLOS, pakiramdam ng Pilipinas ay nakapaloob ito sa karapatan ng bansa. Subalit kapag ginagamit na ng ibang bansa ang mga domestic laws nito at inilalapat sa ilang mga lugar sa loob ng EEZ ng Pilipinas, ay talagang lumilika ito ng uri ng tensyon na naranasan ng Pilipinas lalo na sa mga nakalipas na 2 taon. Ipinunto pa ni Manalo na ang paglabag ng China sa international law ang siyang ugat ng tensyon sa WPS. Subalit, nagmatigas pa rin si former Chinese Vice Foreign Minister Fu Ying. Iginiit ni Fu na ang concern ng China dahil ang Estados Unidos umano ang nasa likod ng mga umaangkin sa South China Sea at kailangan daw na akuin ng Beijing ang responsibilidad para sa katatagan ng rehiyon. Binanggit niya na hindi maaaring sumang-ayon ng China na sakupin ng Pilipinas ang Second Thomas or Ayungin Shoal at ang Sabina o Escoda Shoal dahil ito raw ay isang paglabag sa Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea. Dagdag pa ng opisyal, ang hakbang ng Pilipinas na ilagay ang BRP Sierra Madre sa Ayungin Shoal ay isang uri ng kakulitan na hindi raw dapat hikayatin. Idinipensa naman ni Manalo ang Pilipinas at sinabing hindi provocative ang bansa sa mga aksyon nito sa loob ng EEZ nito at sinusuportahan ng iba pang mga bansa ang Pilipinas, kabilang na anya ang Australia, Canada, Japan, New Zealand at maging ang South Korea. Samantala, binuntutan ng isang Navy helicopter ng China ang aircraft ng Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources o BFAR na nagsasagawa ng Maritime Domain Awareness Flight sa Bajo de Masinloc ngayong Martes ng umaga. Ayon po sa Philippine Coast Guard o PCG, lumipad ang Chinese helicopter sa tabi ng BFAR aircraft sa layong 3 meters. Lula ng BFAR aircraft ang isang grupo ng mga mamamahayag at sinabi ng PCG na nagdulot ng panganib sa kaligtasan ng mga piloto at pasahero ng aircraft ng BFAR ang agresibong paglapit ng helicopter ng China. Anila, malinaw na isang paglabag sa regulasyon ng International Civil Aviation Organization ang dangerous flight maneuvers ng China.
Walang data breach. Ito ang tugon ng Commission on Elections o COMELEC sa mga aligasyon na tinamaan umano ng panibagong cyber attack ang kanilang system. Iginiit ni COMELEC Chairperson George Garcia na walang naganap na hacking incident sa website o social media accounts ng poll body. Anya, nakapagsagawa na ng counter-check ang ahensya ukol sa insidente para tiyakin ang seguridad ng kanilang operasyon. Pati raw ang Department of Information and Communications Technology o DICT ay nakipag-ugnayan na sa kanila at kinumpirma na negative ang umano'y cyber attack. Samantala, inanunsyo naman ni Garcia na target ng COMELEC na tapusin na ang pag-imprenta ng mga balota sa March 9 o kaya'y sa 10. Umaasa rin si Garcia na maaabot nila ang 50% ng kanilang target na bilang ng mga balota na dapat ay naimprenta na sa mga susunod na araw.
Iniimbestigahan na po ng Department of Education o DepEd ang mga ulat hinggil sa umano'y ghost students sa ilalim ng senior high school voucher program sa 12 pribadong paaralan. Kaugnay nito ay nagsagawa ang ahensya ng pagsisiyasat sa kanilang mga tauhan at opisyal na posibleng sangkot sa irregularidad. Kung mapatutunayan na ang mga paaralan ay sangkot sa ganitong iligal na gawain, ay aalisin ang mga ito sa voucher program ng DepEd. Pinag-aaralan na rin ng ahensya ang pagsasampa ng kasong kriminal sa mga taong nasa likod ng iligal na gawain para panagutin ang mga ito. Mariin namang ikinundina ni Education Secretary Sonny Angara ang ganitong krimen. Anya, hindi nila pinapayagan ang anumang maling paggamit ng public funds na nakalaan para sa mga mahahalagang education programs ng ahensya. Tiniyak naman ng DepEd sa publiko na tutulungan nila ang mga maaapektuhang estudyante dahil sa nasabing issue.
Naglaan ang Department of Education o DepEd ng 1.8 billion pesos para sa mahigit 62,000 na mga laptops at smart TV packages na ipamamahagi sa mga paaralan sa buong Pilipinas. Ayon sa Education Department, layo ng inisyatiba na ito na mapabuti ang low teacher-to-laptop ratio sa bansa. Pinasalamatan naman ng Education Secretary Sonny Angara si Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. at ang kanyang kasamahan sa gabinete dahil sa tulong nila para makamit ang layunin ng pamahalaan na makapagtayo ng mga e-cart o roving computer labs na magagamit ng lahat ng mga estudyante. Anya, kasama rin dito ang mga software tools para suportahan ang mga guro sa kanilang pagtuturo.
Null and void, walang bisa ang articles of impeachment na ipinasa ng Kamara sa Senado laban kay Vice President Sara Duterte. Yan po ang argumento ngayon ng ilang mga abogado na kumukestyon sa validity ng reklamong impeachment laban sa bise. Sa mahigit 100 pahinang petition for certiorari and prohibition ay ipinaliwanag ng mga petitioners sa Supreme Court na bigo umanong makatugon sa requirements na humihingi ng konstitusyon sa impeachment proceedings na verification at proper initiation. Ang paglagdaan nila ng mga mambabatas na pumabor sa impeachment ay hindi nangangahulugan na may proper verification.
There was only around 3 hours between 12 o'clock to 3:15 before it was included in the additional House business reference. And by that time, we feel and we have reasons to believe that some of the congressmen were not even able to peruse the complaint as well as assess the evidences attached in the impeachment complaint.
Wala rin anilang transparency sa agenda ng House Caucus noong February 5 dahil hindi umano alam ng ibang kongresista na ang pag-uusapan ay ukol sa impeachment ni VP Sara. Naniniwala ang mga petitioners na minadali ng Kamara ang proseso ng impeachment katulad na lamang ng nangyari noon sa kaso ni late Chief Justice Renato Corona.
What did they do? They fast-track. No? We can even characterize it, to borrow the words of Justice Corona, blitzkrieg fashion. And hearing prior to the filing of this fourth complaint. Okay? She was never informed beforehand that this new complaint is going to be filed against him. Specifically, Article 11, Section 3 thereof mandates that upon receipt of the impeachment complaint, the same should be included in the order of business within 10 session days, and thereafter the Speaker should have referred it to the Committee on Justice within 3 days. And if the 3 complaints were entertained, included in the order of business within 10 session days, and included within 3 session days in the Committee of Justice, referred to the Committee of Justice, then the 1-year bar rule would have operated, and the 4th impeachment complaint should not have been legally entertained.
Hiniling din ng petitioner sa Supreme Court na mag-issue ng temporary restraining order upang pigilan ng Senado na aksyonan ang impeachment complaint laban sa bise at huwag ding simulan ang impeachment trial dahil sa depektibong articles of impeachment.
Target ng pamunuan ng Department of Agriculture o DA na magpatupad ng maximum suggested retail price sa karneng baboy sa susunod na buwan dahil sa patuloy na pagtaas ng presyo ng mga ito sa merkado. Ayon kay Agriculture Assistant Secretary Arnel de Mesa, inaasahan na uusad ang pag-uusap ng ahensya sa mga stakeholders sa mga susunod na linggo. Sa kabila nito ay hindi tinukoy ng Agriculture Department kung magkano ang ididiktang presyo para sa maximum suggested retail price ng karneng baboy, pero maaaring mas mababa pa ito sa 400 pesos kada kilo. Una nang nagpatupad ang DA ng maximum suggested retail price sa mga imported na bigas para makontrol ang pagtaas ng presyo nito sa mga pamilihan.
Inanunsyo po ng Light Rail Manila Corporation na magpapatupad sila ng taas pasahe sa LRT1 sa April 2, 2025. Batay sa inaprubahang commuter's fare matrix ng Department of Transportation para sa LRT1, ang dating 15 pesos na minimum fare para sa single ticket journey ay itataas na sa 20 pesos. Habang itataas naman sa 55 pesos ang pamasahe para sa end-to-end travels, para naman po yan sa single journey ticket mula sa 45 pesos. Samantala, mas mura naman ang itinakdang presyo para sa mga LRT1 stored value cards na 19 pesos hanggang 52 pesos.
Susunod, European Union sinagot ang mga pahayag ni US Vice President J.D. Vance.
Ano nga ba ang halaga ng rare earth minerals ng Ukraine para sa Estados Unidos?
At negotiation talks ng Estados Unidos at Russia natuloy na. Mga detalye ng mga balitang yan sa pagbabalik ng Mata ng Agila International.
This portion is brought to
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka nang mangamba, sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Sinabi ng Taiwan Defense Ministry na sinusuportahan nito ang kalayaan sa paglalayag ng mga demokratiko at palakaibigang mga bansa sa Taiwan Strait. Nagbabala rin ang Taipei sa Beijing sa patuloy na pagpapatrolya nito sa Taiwan Strait. Para sa Taipei, ginagamit lang itong dahilan ng China para paghandaan ang isang pagsalakay sa isla. Anilang isinagawang joint combat readiness patrols ng China sa Taiwan Strait pagkatapos na dumaan ang naval forces ng US at Canada ay panakot sa Taiwan at iba pang bansa sa rehiyon.
不管是友盟国家的基建通过台湾海峡当做一个借口，当做执行联合战备警巡的一个借口，我们认为这是说不通的。换句话说，我们从整体的台海的状况里面看得出来。所谓的联合战备警巡，基本上的目的就是对于我们来包含台湾、包含周边的国家来做一个威慑的动作。那它有它的政治目标。那么用所谓其他国家基建通过，这只是当做一个借口。我们不认为这是一个非常是它真正的一个原因。
Nasa kustodiya ngayon ng mga otoridad ng Myanmar ang nasa 273 foreigners na sangkot sa pagpapatakbo ng mga scam compounds sa kanilang bansa.
中国正在同泰国、缅甸等国积极开展双多边合作，综合施策、标本监制，合力封堵不法分子在有关国家流窜作案，共同铲除 网赌、电诈毒瘤，维护人民生命财产安全和地区国家交往合作秩序。外交部将继续会同主管部门，指导驻外使领馆妥善处置相关的领保求助案件，维护海外中国公民的安全和合法权益。
Kasabay ang naturang operasyon sa pagbisita ng isang mataas na opisyal ng Beijing, tinitignan ng Myanmar, Thailand at China na maghigpit laban sa mga illegal online extortion operations. Ayon po sa datos ng United Nations, tinatansyang nasa 100,000 na ang mga taong nabiktima ng human trafficking operations ng mga kriminal na grupong naglalagi sa Myanmar-Thailand border. Nahaharap ngayon sa malakihang counter-operations ang mga scam centers dahil sa naganap na rescue and return operation para kay Chinese influencer Wang Xing matapos mag-viral ang kanyang storya sa social media. Nagpulong ang mga opisyal ng China, Myanmar at Thailand ngayong linggo kasama si Assistant Public Security Minister Yu Zhongzi sa Wadadi, Myanmar. Sa ngayon, nasa 1,300 na ang mga naaresto ng kapulisan ng Myanmar na may kaugnayan sa pagpapatakbo ng mga scam compound sa Wadi region.
Binanata ng Foreign Ministry ng North Korea ang pangakong denuclearization ng Estados Unidos, South Korea at Japan. Matatandaan na nag-usap sina U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, South Korean Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yul at Japanese Foreign Minister Iwaya Takeshi noong Sabado at sinabi na committed ang kani-kanilang bansa na pigilan ng North Korea sa paggawa ng mga nuclear weapons. Ayon sa Pyongyang, luma at walang katotohanan ang plano ng tatlong bansa at nagbabala rin ito sa pag-uudyok ng gulo sa Korean Peninsula. Iginiit ng North Korea na hanggat may pagbabanta ang US at mga kaalyadong bansa nito ay palalakasin ng Pyongyang ang kanilang nuclear force upang maipagtanggol ang kapayapaan at soberanya ng kanilang estado.
Isang grupo ng mga senador ng Estados Unidos ang nagsabing kailangang kasama ang Ukraine at Europe sa anumang usapan ukol sa giyera sa Kyiv. Naniniwala rin ang mga ito na kailangang garantyahan ang pamangtagalang seguridad ng Ukraine pagkatapos ng digmaan. Anakoy po para sa balita.
Sa araw ng Emergency European Summit sa Paris, bumisita sina US Senators Jeannie Shaheen, Tom Tillis at Michael Bennet sa Kyiv. Ito ay matapos ipahayag ng Administrasyong Trump na makikipag-usap ito sa Russia upang wakasan na ang giyera sa Ukraine. Ayon kina Colorado Senator Michael Bennet, New Hampshire Senator Jeannie Shaheen at North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis, walang magpagkakasunduan kundi isasali ang Ukraine sa usapan.
I don't think we believe any just peace can be reached without the participation and leadership of Ukraine, without the participation of Europe, and I don't believe that any agreement can be done behind Ukraine's back.
I think we all share that. It's important for Ukraine to be at the table. We heard that from President Zelensky as well at the Munich Security Conference. A bipartisan group in Congress that supports Ukraine and a positive resolution believe that we are not going to see any kind of negotiated end to this war unless there are security guarantees that people feel comfortable about. We saw what happened in 2014 when Russia came in and we weren't tough enough.
Of course they have to be at the table. There are thousands of people who have given their lives to defend this country. Does anybody really believe that the United States would negotiate an agreement with a European nation that's done what they've done on the battlefield, that's suffered what they have, and not be at the table? Of course they will. And you'll see that in the coming weeks and months. Thank you.
Ginulat ni Trump ang Ukraine at ang European allies nito noong nakaraang linggo. Ipinahayag kasi ni Trump na nakipag-usap ito kay Russian President Vladimir Putin ukol sa pagwawakas ng giyera, subalit hindi nito kinonsulta ang Ukraine ni ang mga kaalyado ng Kyiv sa Europa. Anakoy para sa mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Nagsagawa ng emergency summit ang European leaders sa Paris para pag-usapan ang kapayapaan sa Ukraine.
Für uns ist sehr klar, wir müssen die Ukraine weiter unterstützen und sie muss und kann sich auf uns verlassen, dass das der Fall sein wird. Wir begrüßen, dass es Gespräche gibt über Friedensentwicklung, aber für uns muss und ist klar sein und ist klar, das bedeutet nicht, dass es einen Diktatfrieden geben kann und dass die Ukraine akzeptieren muss, was ihr präsentiert wird. Insofern sind wir sehr eng abgestimmt mit dem ukrainischen Präsidenten und der Ukraine insgesamt, was diese Fragen betrifft. Ich habe selbst gesagt,
Sinabi ni German Chancellor Olaf Scholz na mahalaga ang papel ng European Union, Estados Unidos at NATO sa tuluyang pagpapatigil ng kaguluhan sa Ukraine. Subalit hindi rin dapat tanggalin ang karapatan ng European leaders na mamagitan rin sa pag-uusap para matiyak na hindi naaatakihin ng Russia ang Ukraine. Klinaro naman ni Scholz na wala ang kahit anong bansa sa tamang posisyon na maging representante ng Ukraine sa peace talks, kundi ang Ukraine mismo. Tila pasaring sa pagpupumilit ng Estados Unidos na manduhan ang peace deal ng Ukraine at Russia.
ich bin sogar ein wenig irritiert über diese Debatten, das will ich ganz offen sagen. Hier wird über die Köpfe der Ukraine hinweg über das Ergebnis von Friedensgesprächen, die nicht stattgefunden haben und bei denen die Ukraine nicht Ja gesagt hat und nicht am Tisch gesessen hat, über mögliche Varianten von Ergebnissen gesprochen. Das ist höchst unangemessen, um es ganz offen und ehrlich zu sagen. Wir wissen gar nicht, was das Ergebnis sein wird. Aus meiner Sicht werden ja viele unterschiedliche Dinge diskutiert, von internationalen Friedenstruppen bis zu sonstigen Dingen. Und für mich ist ganz klar, dass das deshalb eine unpassende Debatte zur falschen Zeit und über das falsche Thema ist. Wir sind noch nicht beim Frieden, sondern mitten in einem brutal von Russland vorgetragenen Krieg, der ohne Rücksicht weiter vorangetrieben wird.
Es ist doch der ukrainische.
Nakatakda rin itong kausapin ng personal sa Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at si US President Donald Trump ukol sa nasabing pagtigil ng kaguluhan sa Ukraine.
Sinabi ni British Prime Minister Keir Starmer na kailangan mayroong pangako ang Estados Unidos sa mga bansa sa Europa na magpapadala ito ng post-war peacekeeping forces sa Ukraine. Malinaw din naman niya na hindi kakalas ang Estados Unidos sa NATO, subalit dapat kailangang gumawa ng higit pa ang Europa. Tinukoy ni Starmer ang issue ng defense spending at karagdagang responsibilidad para sa seguridad ng kontinente. Nangako rin ang opisyal na magpapadala ito ng mga tauhan para sa usaping pangkapayapaan, subalit dapat pa rin tumulong ang US para mapigilan ang Russia na atakihing muli ang Ukraine.
Binweltahan ni German Chancellor Olaf Scholz ang mabigat na kritisismo ni US Vice President J.D. Vance sa European Union. Ayon kasi sa talumpati ni Vance sa Munich Security Conference, ang posisyon ng European Union ukol sa hate speech at far-right parties sa kanilang bansa ang nagpipigil mismo sa progreso nito, tila hindi daw nito pinakikinggan ang hinaing ng lahat ng partido kung kaya't nagbubunga ito sa destabilisasyon ng kanilang mga bansa.
Now, the good news is that I happen to think your democracies are substantially less brittle than many people apparently fear. And I really do believe that allowing our citizens to speak their mind will make them stronger still. Which, of course, brings us back to Munich, where the organizers of this very conference have banned lawmakers representing populist parties on both the left and the right from participating in these conversations. Now, again, we don't have to agree with everything or anything that people say. But when people represent, when political leaders represent an important constituency, it is incumbent upon us to at least participate in dialogue with them.
Ani Vance, wala umanong karapatan ng sinuman na pigilan ang karapatan ng tao sa free speech at nanawagan rin na huwag harangan ng German far-right party na AfD. Sinagot naman ito ni Scholz na hindi tama para sa outsiders na mangialam sa kanilang gobyerno, lalong-lalo na tinuturing pa nitong kaalyado ang Estados Unidos.
Die AfD ist eine Partei, aus deren Reihen heraus der Nationalsozialismus und seine monströsen Verbrechen, Menschheitsverbrechen, wie sie in Dachau geschehen sind, als Vogelschiss der deutschen Geschichte verharmlost werden. Ein Bekenntnis zum Nie wieder ist daher nicht mit der Unterstützung für die AfD in Einklang zu bringen. Deshalb werden wir es nicht akzeptieren, wenn Außenstehende zugunsten dieser Partei in unsere Demokratie, in unsere Wahlen und in die demokratische Meinungsbildung eingreifen.
Pinagtanggol rin ni Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky ang kanyang posisyon ukol sa peace talk sa gitna ng Estados Unidos at Russia, kung saan sinabi nitong wala sa iisang tao ang kapangyarihan na patigilin ang digmaan at diktahan ang kapayapaan ng rehiyon, kundi sa pakikipag-ugnayan ng lahat.
Putin wants one-on-one talks with America. Just like before the war, when they met in Switzerland and looked like to carve up the world. Next, Putin will try to get the US president standing on Red Square on May 9th this year, not as a respected leader, but as a probe in his own performance. We don't need that. We need real success. We need real peace. Shortage of fighting forces. And if this war ends the wrong way, he will have a surplus of battle-tested soldiers who know nothing but killing and looting. And that is yet another reason why this war cannot be decided by just a few leaders, not by Trump and Putin, not by me and Putin, not by anyone here in Munich sitting down with Putin alone. We must apply pressure together to make real peace.
Naging emosyonal naman si Munich Security Conference Chairman Christoph Eusgen kung saan sinabi niyang hindi na parehas ang pananaw ng European Union at ng Estados Unidos. Pinasalamatan naman niya ang kanyang mga kasamahan sa Europa para sa kanilang paninindigan sa prinsipyo ng European Bloc.
With Ewald von Kleist, this conference started as a transatlantic conference. After the speech of Vice President Vance on Friday, we have to fear that our common value base is not that common anymore. I'm very grateful to all those European politicians that spoke out and reaffirmed the values and principles that they are defending. No one did this better than President Zelensky.
Para naman suportahan ang Kyiv ay nagpasaring si US President Donald Trump kay Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky na dapat suplayan nito ng rare earth deposits ang Estados Unidos. Gaano nga po ba kahalaga para kay Trump ang yamang mineral na ito? Alamin po natin yan mula sa report ni Judel Alipio.
Mahalaga ang rare earth deposits sa paggawa ng mga high-performance magnets, electric motors, at consumer electronics. Ito ang sinasabing dahilan ng mga geopolitical experts kaya nais ni US President Donald Trump na suplayan ng Ukraine ang Estados Unidos ng rare earth minerals. Kung sakaling pumayag si Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky sa kagustuhan ni Trump, ay unti-unti na rin anilang mapuputol ang pagiging dependent ng US sa China pagdating sa rare earth deposits.
Trump wants rare earths because the American economy is highly dependent on Chinese sources and it's an economic and national security risk. So, reason number one. Reason number two is that there are not so many American companies who are able to mine and produce rare earths within the US. Reason number two. And reason number three is that, there is Ukraine and we have these commodities right there. And in order to avoid that the Chinese will take over Ukrainian rare earths commodities and build up potential mines there, it's an option for the Americans. And reason number four is to make the Ukrainians pay for the American military support. So there you see a couple of reasons why Trump wants them, but again, we have to wait. What does it really mean on the ground?
Paliwanag ni Zelensky, ang Ukraine ang may pinakamalaking reserba ng titanium na ginagamit sa aviation at space industry. May mga deposito rin anya silang uranium na mahalaga naman sa nuclear energy at mga paggawa ng mga armas. Ayon kay Zelensky, nakatago ang mga yamang mineral na ito sa northwestern Ukraine, isang lupain na malayo sa frontlines ng Moscow at Kiev war. Ngunit, nababahala pa rin si Zelensky na baka buksan ng Moscow ang mineral resources na ito sa North Korea at Iran. Paliwanag naman ng ilang geographers, rare earth elements are not actually rare. Dahil noong 1700s ay alam na ng mga scientifico ang tungkol dito. Gayunman ay critical ito sa maraming industriya dahil puro ito at mahirap paghiwalayin.
Because the term rare earth elements refers to 17 chemically similar elements that are one right next to the other on the periodic table, that means they're actually very difficult to break apart, to separate, so that you can have a higher concentration pure form of praseodymium or neodymium, for example, which are two elements that are used in high-powered magnets that are used in everything from maglev trains to wind turbines to missiles. So it's really because of the challenges, the heavy energy and resource and pollution risks that are associated with refining rare earth elements that production has concentrated historically in so few places.
Naniniwala tuloy ang ibang political scientists na ang pagiging mayaman ng Greenland sa rare earth deposits ang siya ring dahilan kung bakit nais ni Trump na maging teritoryo ng Estados Unidos ang Greenland.
We know so far that Greenland is also very rich, but still mining hasn't started because the government in Greenland is very hesitant about this and sees not only economic potentials, but also risks for their environment there. But it's a similar discussion like in Ukraine, but without war. Main question is who will be first to get access and mine these critical elements, especially rare earths, also uranium and a couple of other elements.
Judel Nicole Alipio from London, United Kingdom para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Nagsimula na ngayong Miyerkules ang pagpupulong ng opisyal ng Estados Unidos sa Russia ukol sa pagtapos ng Russia-Ukraine war. Inaasahang mapag-uusapan ng dalawang bansa ang kanilang mga magagawa para makapaglimbag ng kasunduang magtatapos sa Russia-Ukraine war at magbubuhay sa relasyon ng Russia at Estados Unidos. Kasama sa naturang dialogo ang delegasyon ng Russia na kasama si Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov at ang mga representante ng Estados Unidos na pamumunuan naman ni Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Inakusahan naman ni Lavrov ang European Union na may kagustuhang magtuloy pa rin ang giyera dahil sa pansariling interes.
Касается участия стран, их желания участвовать в переговорном процессе по Украине, вы знаете, их желание уже было неоднократно удовлетворено. Философия-то у европейцев никуда не делась, поэтому я не знаю, что им делать за переговорным столом. Если они будут вот так выцыганивать какие-то лукавые идеи про заморозку конфликта, а сами по обычаю, по своему и по своему нраву и привычкам будут иметь в виду продолжение войны, то зачем их туда приглашать?
Tinitingnang mabibigay daan itong dialogong ito sa isang in-person meeting sa pagitan ni US President Donald Trump at Russian President Vladimir Putin. Ayon naman sa Ukraine, hindi na imbitahan sa naturang negosyasyon, walang peace deal na magaganap nang wala nilang pahintulot.
Україна не братиме, Україна про це нічого не знала. А Україна розцінює будь-які переговори про Україну без України, які не мають результату, і ми не можемо визнавати будь-які речі або будь-які домовленості про нас без нас. І ми не будемо такі домовленості визнавати. Питання ж не в тому, що просто забрати ресурс. Тобто питання в тому, що ти інвестуєш, щоб з цього ресурсу щось було. Ми не країна сировини. І мені здається, що цей момент, що ми не країна сировини, він повинен чітко бути відображений в документі. Збільшення.
Kasabay ng pag-uusap sa Riyadh ang emergency meeting ng European bloc sa France ukol sa isang unified strategy para sa Ukraine. Kasama rito ang pangako ng European Union na maglalaan ito ng pondo para sa seguridad ng kontinente na papangunahan din nila ang pagbigay ng security guarantees para sa Ukraine. Ikinagulat ng Europa sa biglaang pagtulak ni Trump para sa agarang usapin tungkol sa Russia-Ukraine war.
Samantala, sinabi ni US President Donald Trump na nagsagawa ng isang precision airstrike ang US military laban sa isang miyembro ng Al-Qaeda sa Syria. Binati ni Trump si CENTCOM Commander General Michael Corilla sa tagumpay nito. Nangako naman si Corilla na patuloy na ipagtatanggol ng US military ang mga Estados Unidos at mga kaalyado nito laban sa mga kalaban. Susunod, eroplano sa Toronto bumaligtad sa runway. Honda-Nissan merger, may pag-asa pa kayang matuloy? At tech community nasabik sa paglabas ng Grok 3 ng X. Mga detalye po ng mga balitang yan at iba pa sa pagbabalik na Mata ng Agila International.
Habang busy si Jessica sa pag-iwas sa kanyang mga manliligaw.
Kaya ko nang mag-isa, no?
Kalat na yung chismis tungkol sa inyong dalawa ni Sean. Masaya ka na?
Ano? Magiging target na naman ang alaga niya.
Sinasabi mong gusto mo si Sean, pero may ginagawa ka bang bagay na makakabuti sa kapakanan niya?
Ano na naman bang binabalik nitong si Kylie? Jessica Dugo, bibigyan kita ng malaki at mabigat na dagok. Help!
Hindi bababa sa 15 katao ang dinala sa ospital matapos tumaob ang isang Delta Airlines plane na may lulang 80 katao habang naglalanding ito sa Toronto Pearson International Airport. Ayon po sa mga opisyal, walang namatay na mag-crash ang eroplano bandang alas 3:30 Lunes ng hapon. Ang eroplano ay mula sa Minneapolis. Mula naman po sa Toronto, narito si Chantel Santos para sa karagdagang mga detalye.
Ang lahat ng nakasakay sa eroplano ay nag-survive. Tumaob naman ang eroplano habang naglalanding ito at sakay ng regional jet ang 76 na pasahero at 4 na crew. Pero lahat sila ay accounted for. Sa 15 nasaktan, 3 ang nasa kritikal na kalagayan at isa sa mga ito ay isang bata. Samantala, isinara naman ng mga opisyal ang airport's runways ng may 1 oras at kalahati. Pero tumulong ang mga emergency workers na patakasin ng mga pasahero mula sa eroplano habang ang mga bombero naman ay nagsimulang patayin ng apoy. Naglakad din ang survivor sa tarmac na balot ng snow at sa oras ng crash, sinasabing malakas ang ihip ng hangin at matindi ang lamig ng temperatura. Naglunsad din kaagad ng investigasyon ang Transportation Safety Board of Canada. Chantel Santos, Toronto, Canada, para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point. Balik sa inyo dyan sa studio.
Yes, Chantel, matanong lang namin, nabanggit mo na tumaob yung eroplano sa backside nito. Gaano ba kadalas nangyayari ang mga ganitong aksidente dyan?
Tumaob nga ang eroplano at ayon sa mga eksperto, ang ganitong klaseng aksidente ay hindi nga pangkaraniwan, no? Lalo na sa Canadian Aviation. Sa ngayon, hindi pa mawari kung paano nangyari ang ganitong pagtaob ng eroplano na sinasabi daw mahirap gawin ng sadya o ng hindi sinasadya. Balik sa inyo dyan.
Maraming salamat sa iyo, Chantel Santos, nag-uulat mula sa Toronto, Canada.
Patay naman ang nasa 31 katao matapos mahulog ang isang bus sa bangin sa Bolivia. Ayon sa ulat ng pulisya, pinaniniwala ang nawala ng kontrol ang driver sa minamaneho nitong bus. Napag-alaman din nila na mabilis ang pagpapatakbo ng driver sa sasakyan nito. Nakaligtas naman ang nasa 14 katao at kasalukuyang nagpapagaling ang mga ito sa ospital.
Nahulog naman po ang isang pampasaherong bus sa isang malaking drain sa India matapos itong sumalpok sa isang truck. Ayon sa lokal na ulat, patay ang 5 pasahero nito habang nasa 26 na iba pa ang nakaligtas naman mula sa trahedya. Batay sa inisyal na investigasyon ng pulisya, nawala ng kontrol ang driver ng bus matapos ang pagsalpok nito sa truck. Dito na ito tuluyang nahulog sa drain. At dahil po dito ay isinara ang kahabaan ng Kotkapura Road para sa retrieval operation sa nahulog na bus. Inabisuhan na rin ng mga otoridad ang publiko na sundin ang alternatibong mga rutang kanilang itinakda para sa mga motorista.
Pasintabi po sa mga kumakain dyan kung meron man dahil natustang buhay ang isang lalaki sa India matapos tumalon ito mula sa footbridge at tumama sa kawad ng kuryente sa Patna Junction. Dahil rito ay panik ang mga taong nakasaksi sa kalunos-lunos na kalagayang sinapit ng lalaki. Buti na lamang ay mga staff na nakabantay sa platform para ma-crowd control ang mga tao sa lugar. Ayon sa ulat ng pulisya, pinaniniwala ang umakyat ang lalaki sa mesh ng tulay para makarating sa susunod na platform dahil maraming mga tao ang nakaharang sa paligid nito. Subalit dahil sa kapangahasan ng lalaki na makatawid ng mabilis sa kabila ay sa halip ay napahamak ito sa huli. Kinumpirma naman ng mga rail authorities ang pagkamatay ng lalaki. Patuloy namang inaalam ng mga otoridad ang pagkakakilanlan ng biktima. Samantala, sa hiwalay na insidente ay naisugod pa sa ospital ang isang lalaking nakuryente rin matapos umakyat sa bubungan ng isang tren sa Haldwani Railway Station sa India. Ayon sa lokal na ulat, nagtamo ang biktima ng sunog sa ilang bahagi ng katawan. Dahil rito ay hinimok ng mga otoridad ang mga pasahero na palaging sundin ang mga ipinatutupad na guidelines sa mga estasyon ng tren at iwasan ang mga kilos na maaaring humantong sa ikapapahamak ng buhay ng tao. Hinahanda na ng British government ang mga estratehiya nito upang maibsan ang epekto ng Trump tariff sa steel and aluminum industry nito. Si Eva Cunanan para sa detalye.
Inihayag ng British Department for Business and Trade na humihingi ito ng feedback ng publiko para sa magiging estratehiya ng United Kingdom na naglalayon na mapanatili ang global competitiveness ng British steel sector. Ito'y sa gitna ng mga hamon na haharapin ng bansa laban sa mga taripang ipinataw ni Trump sa pag-import ng bakal. Umaray na nga ang mga industrial association na UK Steel sa nasabing taripa dahil ito'y anila isang suntok na magpapabagsak sa £400 million na annual contribution ng steel industry sa transatlantic trade. Una nang ibinalita na may mutual interest ang Britain at ang Estados Unidos upang magkaroon ng exemption ang Britain mula sa Trump tariffs. Sinabi ni US President Donald Trump na maaaring mag-alok ang Britain ng very specialized steel and aluminum exports gaya ng submarine casings na ginawa sa Sheffield. Samantala, may mga ulat na handa ang British government na magpondo ng £2 billion sa domestic steel industry para hikayatin ang mga proyektong infrastruktura na unahin ang British-made steel. Eva Cunanan from London, United Kingdom para sa mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Naniniwala ang ilang business analysts na maaari pang mabuhay ang merger talks ng Honda at Nissan. Yan ay kung magbibitiw sa pwesto bilang Nissan boss si Chief Makoto Uchida. Ayon sa ilang media sources, nabigo ang $60 billion deal ng dalawang automakers dahil ayaw ng Nissan na maging subsidiary ito ng Honda. Nais ng Honda na magkaroon ng bagong boss ang Nissan na may mas kayang pamahalaan ng internal opposition sa anumang negosasyon. Nauna nang sinabi ni Uchida na mananatili siya sa Nissan hanggang sa taong 2026. Subalit, may mga bali-balitang pinepressure ng mga board members at ang French partner nito na Renault, si Uchida na bumaba na sa pwesto. May mga informal business negotiations na rin daw ang dalawang automakers dahil mukhang mahina na ang Nissan kung hindi mangyayari ang merger deal.
Inilabas na ni Elon Musk ang ikatlong bersyon ng Grok Artificial Intelligence o AI model kung saan ay giniit ng billionaire na kaya nitong tapatan ang ibang models ng mga karibal nitong tech firms. Ayon sa team ni Musk, may kakayahan ang Grok 3 na magsagawa ng tinatawag na deep search. Ito anya ang nagsisilbing next generation search engine model. Higit pa rito, kumpiyansa si Musk na kayang i-outperform ng Grok 3 ang ibang models kung pag-uusapan ang reasoning capabilities. Inihayag naman ng XAI na gumagamit ito ng Colossus supercomputer para i-train ang Grok 3. Anila, naging susi sa matagumpay na development ng Grok ang nasa higit 100,000 advanced NVIDIA GPUs na nakalaan para rito. Sa ngayon po, available ang Grok 3 sa mga Premium X subscribers. Nakabawi na ngayon si world number 4 at Asian champion pole vaulter EJ Obiena matapos na makamit ang gold medal sa Orlin Copernicus Cup na ginanap sa Turin, Poland. Naitala ng two-time Olympian ang 5.80-meter clearance para manguna sa siyam na mga kalahok. Nasa pangalawang pwesto ang pambato ng Poland na si Piotr Silisek na nagtala lamang ng 5.70 meters. Habang nasa pangatlong pwesto si Sondre Gutorsmen ng Norway. Ito na ang pangalawang gintong medalya na nakuha ni Obiena na una na ay sa Metz Athleter sa France noong nakaraang buwan. Tila pagbangon din itong maituturing dahil sa nagtapos lamang siya sa pang-7 pwesto sa mga 8 manlalaro sa staff indoor tournaments na ginanap naman sa Düsseldorf, Germany.
Muli na namang nakabasag ng world record si Ugandan runner Jacob Kiplimo. Tinapos kasi ng 24 anyos na mananakbo ang Barcelona Half Marathon. Siya lamang ang unang tao na nakatapos ng nasabing distansya nang wala pang 57 minutes. Umabot sa 56 minutes and 42 seconds ang kabuuang oras nito na mas mabilis ng 48 seconds sa dating world record. Unang nakakuha ng nasabing record kasi ay si Yomif Keyelcha ng Ethiopia na mayroong 57 minutes and 30 seconds na record. Magpapahinga muna ngayon si Kiplimo dahil pinaghahandaan ang London Marathon na gaganapin naman sa buwan ng Abril. Kailangan nyo ba ng source of income at kasabay nito ay inaaliw rin ang inyong sarili? Abay-abaswak sa inyo itong pasukan dahil booming ngayon ang in-home pet sitting sa Shanghai, China. Sa gitna kasi ng Spring Event Holiday ay maraming mga fur parents ang nagbabakasyon at dahil ilang kilometro ang layo ng kanilang pupuntahan ay hindi na nila maiwasan na iwan sa kanilang mga tahanan ang kanilang mga fur babies. Dito nasasaklolo ang mga pet sitters. Tulad ng babysitters ay bantay sarado rin ang mga pet sitters sa mga fur babies nila o ng kanilang mga kliyente. Ayon kay Xu Shize, isang pet sitter, kumikita siya ng $31 o halos $4 po yan kada bisita niya sa kanyang mga kliyente. Anya, ang karaniwang board niya sa kanyang mga kliyente ay umaabot ng hanggang 2 linggo. Batay sa 2025 China Pet Industry White Paper, umabot na sa 76.89 million ang bilang ng pet-owning household sa China noong taong 2024. Habang lumampas naman sa 300 billion won ang naging halaga ng Chinese urban pet market noong 2024 din at inaasahan na sisirit pa ito pataas sa 404.2 billion won sa 2027.
At dahil nga po Northern Light season ngayon ay may hatid kami mga tips and guides para sa mga Aurora Borealis enthusiasts na bibisita naman sa Harstad, Norway. Ang Northern Lights ay karaniwang matatanaw tuwing mid-September hanggang early April, subalit kahit panahon ito ng kanilang paglabas ay hindi basta-basta mahahanap ito sa Norway. Ayon sa mga eksperto, malaki ang tsansa na matunghayan ang makulay na ilaw na ito sa Hinoya. Anila, mababa ang level ng light pollution sa lugar kaya madaling makikita ang kulay green, purple and pink na streak sa papawirin. Pinapayuhan din ang mga gustong manood nito na magdala ng sariling tents, ilang mga camping tools at maiinom na hot chocolate drink para ma-enjoy ang napakagandang view.
Ang ganda naman.
Ang ganda-ganda.
Pero torn ako ngayon kung sa Norway ba ako pupunta o sa China. Kasi naman, napaka-appealing nung offer na pet sitter.
Meron
diba?
bang racket doon?
Diba?
Para sa mga...
Mo, mahilig naman din tayo sa animals, diba? Tapos kikita ka ng gano'n, hindi na masama yun.
Well, mas malapit ang China, pero para sa akin magdo-Norway na lang ako.
Ang ganda rin naman, diba? Northern Lights.
Ako, nakaka-inspire naman yung kulay nila, Nina.
Parang bakit pakiramdam ko bukas? Yan ang mga kulay na susuotin natin,
na-inspire
diba?
tayo. Akala mo, Nina, Tuesday pa lang pala, diba? Pero ang dami na hitik na ang ating mga balita at mga pangyayari dito mismo sa studio. Kaya abangan po kami muli bukas dahil mula Lunes hanggang Biyernes, narito kami ni Nina para maghatid ng balita saan mang dako na mundo. Magandang gabi po. Ako po muli si Ricky Matay.
Ako si Nina Richie Alagaw Flores. Ito ang Mata ng Agila International. Para naman po sa iba pang mga balitang nangyari rin sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo, punta tayo kay Alma Angeles para sa Mata ng Agila World News. Take it away, Alma.
good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for NET25 World News. On tonight's headlines, 80 passengers survived the terrifying upside-down landing in Toronto. And the news starts now. A Delta passenger jet has crashed while landing in Toronto. Take a look at this shocking image of the plane upside down at the runway at Pearson International Airport. Now, the airport confirms that everyone on board is accounted for, and luckily, there were no fatalities. However, several people have been injured. Yolanda Aspiras is reporting from Toronto.
Everyone aboard the aircraft survived. The plane flipped on its backside upon landing. The regional jet carried 76 passengers and 4 crew. All have been accounted for.
So the facts of the matter around this event that happened at approximately 2:30 p.m. is Delta Airlines Flight 4819 from Minneapolis to Toronto, operated by subsidiary Endeavour Air, was involved in a single aircraft accident upon landing at Toronto Pearson. The plane was carrying 4 crew and 76 passengers, among them 22 Canadians. The other passengers were multinational. Airport emergency workers mounted a textbook response, reaching the site within minutes and quickly evacuating the passengers. Again, there were no fatalities. 17 injured passengers were quickly taken to local area hospitals. At this time, we do not know of any of those passengers having critical injuries.
Of the 15 people injured, 3 are in critical condition. One of the critically injured is a child. Officials closed the airport's runways for about an hour and a half after the crash.
But I found that you were getting constant sayings on the intercom saying that there's a delay, etc. But everything seemed to be very normal.
Right, so we're off to Fort Lauderdale at 4:55, but we've been delayed only a half an hour so far. When I was grabbing lunch, I hear people at the table behind me saying there was an accident at Pearson. What? And then someone at the end of the bar said, yeah, the plane flipped over. I'm like, what? And so we're hearing cancellations and airport closed and all this for the longest time. And then finally, when information starts flowing, we're hearing that we're only delayed and not canceled. So we were going through the whole gamut of where we're going to stay tonight. Are we leaving tomorrow morning? We got to catch a cruise, and we can't catch any port of call until the beginning of March. So we got to get on this boat, right? So, yeah.
Emergency workers helped passengers escape from the plane while firefighters doused it with water. Survivors walk on a snow-covered tarmac to safety.
As we made our descent and made touchdown, it was just a very forceful event where all of a sudden everything just kind of went sideways. And then next thing I know is kind of a blink and I'm upside down, still strapped in, turned around, but it sounded, I mean, it was just cement and metal, you know. I think there was paramedic of help move, and then as a father, I saw this boy and mom who were just, you know, everyone seemed, not oddly calm, but everyone seemed like they were there to make sure we helped each other and, you know, moved out of harm's way.
The airport had been dealing with high winds and frigid temperatures at the time of the crash. The Transportation Safety Board of Canada has launched an investigation. In Toronto, Canada, Yolanda Aspiras for NET25 World News. Back to you, Alma.
Yolanda, Greater Toronto has been hit with inclement weather and a snowstorm over this weekend. Now, what are the experts saying? Could the extreme weather be a factor in this accident?
Yes, Alma. According to experts, the weather appeared to be within what the airplane can manage. However, investigators mentioned that they'd be examining icing conditions, blowing snow, visibility issues, and the like. Experts also mentioned that Pearson Airport would know not to accept landings if they knew there was a serious concern about the surface.
Thank you, Yolanda. A diplomatic storm is brewing in Paris tonight, where European leaders are meeting amid reports that the U.S. plans to cut its own deal with Russia over Ukraine's future, leaving its allies out of the room. Take a look. The hallways of Paris Palace were filled with warm greetings today, but underneath those diplomatic smiles, European and NATO leaders are grappling with what many call the continent's biggest crisis in decades. Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer didn't mince words.
At stake is not just the future of Ukraine, it is an existential question for Europe as a whole.
What's causing this anxiety? The Trump administration's latest move, direct negotiations with Russia over Ukraine's future without European or Ukrainian leaders at the table. Security expert Dr. David Blagden from the University of Exeter sees two possible scenarios.
You know, an optimistic take is to say, yeah, sure, you know, the Americans are perfectly welcome to conduct bilateral diplomacy with whoever they want to, and they always have done. And if they see value in cooperating with the Russians on certain matters, as they have done throughout the course of the war, not always in the forefront, but in the background, continuing to keep diplomacy going, then fine. You know, that's the sort of perhaps glass half full read on what's going on. But I think in particular there will be some very significant alarm in European capitals about what might be discussed with regards to the security of their continent, their home region.
But there's a darker possibility that has European leaders on edge. Here's Dr. Blagden again.
One sort of potentially really bad outcome for European capitals is to discover that the Americans have basically put them on the hook for attempting to do some sort of peacekeeping mission in Ukraine or whatever without their say-so, effectively sort of presenting them with a fait accompli type scenario where they either then have to fulfill or, deliver on what the Americans have said they'll do, or end up then having to kind of say, no, we won't do that, and some sort of agreement over Ukraine collapses in acrimony, and the Americans can point at the Europeans and say, well, this is all your fault, you wouldn't deliver.
Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has already taken aim at Europe's role.
The European philosophy has not gone anywhere, so I don't know what can they do at the negotiation table. If they continue scheming some tricky ideas on freezing the conflict while themselves, per usual, as they like and usually do, just mean continue the war, why invite them there?
Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has landed in Saudi Arabia, where the first round of talks with the Russian delegation begins today. Dr. Blagden suggests Europe might have a way forward.
The Europeans could just decide to exercise more strategic autonomy. If they were willing to spend more on their own defense, they wouldn't have to be so dependent on the US position. The European alarm and the sort of European dilemma is largely a product of, many decades of accumulated sort of free riding, choosing to or preferring to get spend on domestic goods, sort of welfare, sort of other aspects of the domestic economy rather than defense.
While Europe has already surpassed the U.S. in both military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine by billions of dollars, it's the Ukrainian people who continue to pay the ultimate price. European leaders meeting in Paris for emergency talks called for higher spending to ramp up the continent's defense capabilities. But they remain split on the idea of deploying peacekeepers to Ukraine to back up any peace deal. French President Emmanuel Macron called the Monday meeting after U.S. President Donald Trump arranged bilateral peace talks with Russia, excluding European allies and Ukraine. Thomas I. Likeness for more.
There seems to be a general consensus that more money has to be spent beefing up European defense forces. The division comes on whether to take things a step further and put troops on the ground in Ukraine. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says Europe has to do more to help Ukraine in its war with Russia, and he adds he would have no problem with Britain taking part in future peacekeeping efforts.
Europe must play its role, and I'm prepared to consider committing British forces on the ground alongside others if there is a lasting peace agreement. But there must be a US backstop, because a US security guarantee is the only way to effectively deter Russia from attacking Ukraine again.
But Starmer's push for peacekeepers has drawn opposition. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz says talk of a German peacekeeping mission in Ukraine is highly inappropriate without any peace deal in hand. Italy's Giorgia Meloni says she too is against the peacekeeping plan. On the other side, Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen says she's open to discussing troop deployments. She says Europe must boost its support for Ukraine.
I have never believed that the war in Ukraine is primarily about Ukraine. It's about Russia. And it's about their imperial dreams, about building a stronger and a bigger Russia. And I don't think they're going to stop in Ukraine. And therefore, I am very concerned about making a fast ceasefire, because it can actually give Putin and Russia a better possibility to go back to Russia and to re-ramp and to mobilize again, attack Ukraine or another country in Europe.
Scholz and Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk say the EU's stringent fiscal rules should be loosened to allow more spending on defense without countries running afoul of the Union's deficit rules. All agreed that the peace talks should include the EU and Ukraine. Meanwhile, senior U.S. and Russian officials will meet in Saudi Arabia today. These are the highest-level in-person discussions between the nation in years. They're meant to precede a meeting between Trump and Putin. But there are signs of differences of approach. U.S. State Department spokesman Tammy Bruce says the conversation will determine if the Russians are serious about peace talks and whether perhaps if that first step is even possible. For its part, the Kremlin says the talks will focus on restoring the entire complex of Russian-American relations. Thomas I. Laiknos, NET25 World News.
Meanwhile, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer is suggesting sending troops to Ukraine. Bel Celestino reports.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is offering to send British troops to Ukraine, but only as part of a peacekeeping force after the war ends. This marks the first time he's explicitly committed to putting boots on the ground. The announcement comes at a critical moment. Last week, President Trump caught NATO allies off guard by revealing he'd held private talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Trump's Ukraine envoy, Keith Kellogg, then indicated that Ukraine and European leaders would have no seat at the negotiating table. Writing in the Daily Telegraph, Starmer explains his decision, quote, "I feel very deeply the responsibility that comes with potentially putting British servicemen and women in harm's way." He emphasized that any peace deal must prevent Putin from launching future attacks. The British leader sees...
On defence, it's clear the US is not going to leave NATO. But we Europeans will have to do more. The issue of burden sharing is not new, but it is now pressing, and Europeans will have to step up, both in terms of spending and the capabilities that we provide. Europe must play its role, and I'm prepared to consider committing British forces on the ground alongside others if there is a lasting peace agreement.
His country playing a unique role. He's positioning the UK as a potential bridge between Europe and the United States during peace negotiations. An especially crucial position given the current tensions over who should be involved in talks. This diplomatic drama is moving quickly. US and Russian officials are scheduled to meet in Saudi Arabia in the coming days. aiming to end a war that's now approaching its third year. Meanwhile, European leaders are rallying. Starmer will join German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. French President Emmanuel Macron called these urgent talks in response to the US and Russia developments. Starmer plans to take his case directly to Washington soon.
But there must be a US backstop, because a US security guarantee is the only way to effectively deter Russia from attacking Ukraine again. And I've been clear today, Britain will take a leading responsibility, as we always have, because Ukraine must have a secure future, Europe must have a secure future.
From London, United Kingdom, I am Arabelle Celestino reporting for NET25 World News.
It's President's Day in the U.S., and while some are celebrating, others are using the holiday to protest the man currently in the White House, Donald Trump. And thousands have gathered in Washington, D.C., rallying against what they see as his efforts to weaken government agencies and consolidate power. Trump, however, insists he's simply saving the country. In a recent social media post, he echoed Napoleon Bonaparte, writing, "He who saves his country does not violate any law." It's a worldview that legal experts say is on shaky constitutional ground as Trump pushes the limits of presidential power.
It's meant for political reasons, to kind of show the base, hey, I hear you, and I'm trying to do what you want me to do. But that's independent from the law. And the fact that the president does not make it legal. In our system of government, the fact that any government official does something does not make what they do legal. The Constitution is what makes it legal.
Now in office, Trump is taking steps that many see as using the justice system to reward allies and punish critics. One of his first moves, pardoning the rioters who stormed the U.S. Capitol 4 years ago, including those convicted of assaulting police officers.
FBI agents who worked on the January 6 rioters cases, are you planning to fire the FBI agents who worked on those investigations?
No, but I'll fire some of them because some of them were corrupt. I have no doubt about that. I got to know a lot about that business, that world. I got to know a lot about that world, and we had some corrupt agents, and those people are gone, or they will be gone, and it'll be done quickly and very surgically.
His Justice Department has also dropped charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. A federal prosecutor in that case resigned, calling it a quid pro quo for Adams' cooperation on Trump administration priorities. And it doesn't stop there. Trump's Justice Department has asked for lists of FBI agents who investigated him and dismissed prosecutors involved in those cases. But his biggest challenge yet may come from courts. Judges have already blocked his executive order on federal spending, including cuts to food assistance for seniors. The administration has pushed back hard. J.D. Vance, his vice president, said on X, judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power.
We believe that the injunctions that have been issued by these judges have no basis in the law and have no grounds, and we will, again, as the president.
And one major case over Trump's power to fire officials is already before the Supreme Court. With a conservative supermajority, including 3 justices Trump himself appointed, many expect a ruling in his favor. But what happens if the court rules against him? Experts warn that enforcing a ruling could be difficult.
One enforcement mechanism is to cite the president for contempt of court, which is enforced by U.S. Marshals who work for him. So we assume they'll be fired or they'll stand down because he's told them to. The only other enforcement mechanism is impeachment, which is not going to happen because Republicans control the House and the Senate. That means, and this is why I said there's going to be a big crack in the rule of law, because if the president refuses to comply with the court's order, and even if the court delivers it a second and third or fourth time, and he refuses to follow it, if there's no power to punish him or sanction him for that, then he gets away with it. And that is going to be a precedent in American law, which is going to come back to haunt us for decades and centuries.
The question now, if Trump loses in court on a major issue, will he actually comply? Unlike the executive branch, the Supreme Court has no police force or military to enforce its decisions, leaving many Americans wondering what happens next. Rio de Janeiro reached a record heat level of 44 degrees Celsius on Monday, according to the city's chief meteorologist, Raquel Franco, triggering the heat alert for the first time.
Garitiba hit 44 degrees or 111 degrees Fahrenheit today, setting a record for both February and since Alert Rio started in 2014. The heat index sometimes exceeded 50 degrees, but generally hovered between 40 and 44 across the city.
The Heat 4 alert is activated when temperatures between 40 degrees Celsius and 44 degrees Celsius are expected to persist for at least 3 days. City officials recommended that residents avoid direct sun exposure and implemented protocols for hydration and emergency care. Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency is raising alarms. Reports say they've sought access to a U.S. tax system containing financial data on millions of Americans. And so far, officials haven't granted the request, but the concern is growing. In the Middle East, Lebanon is worried Israel won't fully withdraw its forces by the agreed deadline. Lebanese officials are demanding Israel's complete pullout by today. Israeli troops had already missed a previous January cutoff under a fragile ceasefire with Hezbollah. And in Southeast Asia, Myanmar has detained 273 foreigners in a crackdown on scam compounds along its border with Thailand. These sites, long linked to human trafficking, have forced thousands into illegal online scams. The arrests come as China steps up pressure on the region, following the high-profile rescue of abducted Chinese actor Wang Xing. Officials from China, Myanmar, and Thailand have now met to coordinate efforts against transnational fraud. Meanwhile, in Malaysia, Prime Minister Najib Razak has been granted bail in a money laundering case. He and his wife were detained Saturday after police raided the homes of his alleged accomplices, where they reportedly found suitcases stuffed with cash. Najib denies any wrongdoing. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has announced a U.S. airstrike that killed a senior al-Qaeda-linked official in northwest Syria. The target, a top finance and logistic officer for Huras al-Din, was eliminated in what Trump called a precision airstrike. He praised CENTCOM and U.S. forces for delivering what he described as justice to another militant threatening America and its allies. And the news continues here on NET25. We'll be right back.
Sa kasulukuyang henerasyon, marami na ang nag-viral. Dahil po yan sa kanilang ginagawang pagtulong sa kapwa. Pero mas marami ang tumutulong kahit walang nakakakita. Kaya naman kung ikaw ay may kilala na grupo o individual na may natatanging pagresponde sa lipunan at maging sa kalikasan, mag-text lamang sa 0915-415-1035 o mag-email sa responde@net25.com at magpadala ng mensahe sa ating Facebook page at NET25 TV. Baka kayo na ang susunod nating Certified Key Responder.
Let's net together, sa NET25, sa NET25.
And finally, in our news, the Church of Christ keeps growing. And with that comes more places to gather in faith. In Johnsonville, Connecticut, a newly renovated house of worship has been dedicated, bringing inspiration and renewed strength to its members. Take a look.
Building houses of worship has long defined the Iglesia ni Cristo Church of Christ as beacons of hope. This mission continues in Johnsonville, a once abandoned town now revived by the church. Through ongoing outreach and key developments, its transformation moves forward. Now, Johnsonville stands as home to one of the newest houses of worship of the Church of Christ, a testament to God's work remaining unhindered.
great day for the church, for all the brethren here in Connecticut.
Oh, very excited po. With the grace of God, we've been waiting for this day.
It's going to be history. We don't know when it's going to be another chapel, like dedication like this.
Oh, this is wonderful. This is another, it just shows how the church is growing.
This is a celebration of history in the making. An old chapel in Johnsonville, once part of an abandoned village, has been restored and dedicated as a new house of worship. It is part of the Church of Christ's mission to build houses of worship for God's glory. As one of the newest, it has brought members from across the Northeast together in gratitude. And today, members from throughout the Ecclesiastical District of New York gathered together for a worship service to commemorate this special occasion.
We thank our Lord God for that wonderful blessing, for always giving us this wonderful hymns of praises that inspires everyone in the fold.
This inspiration continues to be shared through God's words, as Supervising Minister Brother Sheridan Santos led the worship service, reminding members of the importance of dedicating houses of worship, a testament of God's love for his people like here in Johnsonville.
It was tier after tier, you know, and just from the beginning to the end, it was super overwhelming, like the Holy Spirit was around each and every one of us.
It's a meaningful and spiritual service to always be in a temple, not forsaking the worship service. I think we all take that to heart in the church.
The dedication of houses of worship is one of the proofs of the love of our Lord God for His nation in these last days, because it is the place where we gather in worship, where we find strength and inspiration through His holy words.
Especially for pioneer members like Edwin, living in East Hartford, among the closest to this new house of worship, shares how his faith played an important role for this day to come.
For your faith in God and through the power of prayers, God will provide everything you need. Very blessed to us, all the members here in NET, because we are waiting for this.
Waiting to see God's plans unfold. Years before, when news broke about the surprising purchase of this desolate and once abandoned 62-acre land, leading to this historical moment.
Congratulations.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm hopeful that it's going to be something very positive for the town. I expect it will be.
I'm also a resident that live not too far down the road, about 10 miles down the road in Hebron, Connecticut. And I'm super excited to see this beautiful property and how it's going to turn out a year from now. I can't wait to come back and see all the great things that the church is going to do with this property.
The Church of Christ carefully considers every property it acquires and strives to have a proper place of worship for its members. In Johnsonville, this large property offers even more. Its size and existing buildings provide many possibilities to support the church's future needs.
Every place that I've been just expands so rapidly, especially in the last 15 years. It just goes to show the love of God.
We would like to thank our Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo Manalo, for allowing us, our congregation here in Johnsonville, to dedicate this place of worship.
And as this milestone becomes part of the ongoing work of the Church of Christ in this town's history, true faith is alive here and will continue to strengthen and bring more to light that this church is God's love for His people and a growing light like here in Johnsonville.
And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on NET25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thanks for joining us. Good night.